Alrighty, so today I'm going to talk about the United States rule. We use the United States rule for early payment, and we're also going to use it to find the amount due on the maturity date of a loan. It's common for payment to be made on the loan before it's due. Some examples was when you refinance a debt to a lower rate. The USA rule is used by the U.S. government in most states and financial institutions. Payment is first applied to any interest owed, and the balance is used to reduce the principal. Okay? So the first step that you do when you're doing the United States rule is to find the simple interest due from the date the loan was made until the date the partial payment is made. And we use the simple interest formula, I is equal to P times R times T. So that's principal times rate times time. Step 2 will be subtract the interest from the amount of your partial payment. Any difference is used to reduce your principal. Step 4 is to treat any additional partial payments in the same way, always finding interest on only the unpaid balance after the last partial payment. And step 5 is the remaining principal plus the interest on this unpaid principal is then due on the due date of the loan. That will be the maturity date of the loan. And in our calculations, we are going to use 360-day years. So let's go through an example. To help detect trespasses at night, a small security firm purchased some high technology cameras using a note from Citibank for $32,000. The note was signed on July 26th and was due on November 20th. The interest rate is 13%. The firm made a partial payment of $6,000 on August 31st and a second partial payment of $11,700 on October 4th. We're going to find the amount due on the maturity date of the note and the interest paid on the note. So let's go through the steps. The first step is to first figure out how many days from the date the loan was taken out until the partial payment. Okay, so that's from July 26th up until August 31st. That would be 360 days. So we're going to calculate the interest. We know that the amount of the loan is $32,000. We're going to multiply that by 0.13, and then we're going to use 36 out of 360 days. When I calculated this, I got $416. Now you have to be careful when you enter numbers in the calculator. What you should do is multiply everything first and then hit enter or the equal button and then hit divide by 360. Okay? So now we need to figure out how much money is going to be applied to our principal. So I'm going to take that $416 and I'm going to subtract it from my partial payment of $6,000. When I subtract it off, I get $5,584. This is the amount that is going to be applied to my principal. So now my new principal is going to be my previous principal, which is the amount of the loan minus the amount that we found in step 2, $5,584. So now I owe $26,416. All right. So now step 4 says treat any additional partial payments in the same way, always finding interest on only the unpaid balance after the last partial payment. So now we're going to go from August 31st all the way up to October 4th because October 4th is when I make my next partial payment. That will be a total of 34 days. So now I have to figure out how much interest do I owe. So I'm going to go ahead and write this in. My last balance is $26,416. I'm going to multiply that by the interest rate of 0.13, and then I'm going to multiply that by 34 over 360. And what I get is $324.33. This is how much interest I owe. The next step is to figure out how much money is applied to the principal. So I need to take my partial payment of 11,700 and I'm going to subtract off $324.33. When I subtract it off, I get $11,375.67. So this is how much money is going to be applied to my principal. My principal now is $26,416. Now I'm going to subtract off this 11,375. Excuse my sloppy handwriting. When I subtract it off, I get 15,040.33. Okay. So this is how much money um, the 11,375 is deducted from the 26,416. This is how much money now I owe. The $15,040.33. All right. So now the question asks, find the amount due on the maturity date. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to write this out. So we're going from October 4th all the way up into November 20th. That is the date that the loan matures. So we got to figure out how many days is that now. That's going to be 47 days. So for those 47 days, we have interest building up. So now I'm going to take the balance that I now owe. I'm going to multiply it by the interest rate. And I'm going to multiply that by 47 out of 360 days. That gives me an interest amount of $255.27. So this is how much interest has accumulated from October 4th until November 20th. On November 20th, I need to pay this loan in full. So I'm going to take the amount that I owe and I am going to tack on the interest amount that I now owe. And I get a total of $15,295.60. Okay? So this is the balance due on November 20th. Okay? The last part of the question asks, how much interest did we pay total? All you have to do is backtrack. Before we made our first partial payment, we owed $416 in interest. At the time that we made our second partial payment, we owed $324.33 in interest. Now the last part is when we actually paid the loan off on November 20th, and at that point we paid $255.27 in interest. So the amount that we've paid in interest total, I'm just going to add up these three amounts. 995.60. Okay. I hope this helps you.